Since the seminal Warnock Report in 1978, inclusion has been firmly placed on the educational policy agenda. There is now, as there was then, fierce debate about the true meaning of inclusion in the classroom and what it looks like in practice. As the concept has journeyed through several acts of Parliament, the rights of children and our approach to educating the whole child has also developed, changing what we view as barriers to learning. A quick simplification of this complex concept could read as the modification of classroom environments and culture to allow learners of all abilities and backgrounds to flourish. Originally, this was aimed at those pupils with special educational needs, but as the term suggests, inclusive practice is about raising the expectations and outcomes of all. So how can ICT foster inclusion in the classroom? The Future Lab Handbook offers teachers practical advice on how to remove barriers through technology, ways to improve curriculum access to those with SEN and disability. Things like speech-to-text applications, handwriting apps, applications to help those on the autistic spectrum better understand social language, and many more technologies are assisting and enabling children with SEN to learn in the classroom right now. But what about inclusion in the greater sense? Seal observes that we live in an increasingly tech-driven society, but not everyone can afford the price of admission. Data shows that those on free school meals, a common indicator of parental income, are less likely to have access to technology at home. This group is also less likely to achieve academically. Whilst we cannot explicitly blame the second fact on the first, the two are clearly linked. With the introduction of computing to the curriculum, ICT is a subject in the spotlight, increasing in relevance to our world constantly, both socially and economically. Servan argues that access to IT has widened already deeply entrenched imbalances between the privileged and the disenfranchised. She draws attention to a troubling cycle, in which a lack of access to technology and the subsequent skills it provides result in less participation in the economy and civil society. This suggests that the problem goes far beyond educational achievement and holds drastic consequences for the future of non-participants. Rudd contends that the challenge for educational policy now is to promote greater social justice and equality. So what is being done? Education has long acted as a catalyst to social change, and it is being lined up to help bridge the digital divide already. Some schools are taking the lead and issuing all of their children with iPads at no expense to the parent. Low-cost solutions like the Raspberry Pi can also be used to bring computing to life on a budget, and schools are also being pushed to provide lunchtime and after-school clubs to encourage those without the tech at home to get involved. But before we take the drastic step to issue each child their own iPad, there are those that argue more research is needed. Selwyn et al. Contend that we need to gain pupil perspective on the issue of ICT and better understand the interaction between how it is used in school and home, arguing that it is not simply a case of those who have and have not. During my own experience in schools, I have been lucky enough to see some incredible digital solutions to inclusion. For example, I have seen eye gaze used to develop interactive learning experiences for PMLD children whose curriculum had until then been purely experiential. But I have also seen the gap between children who had regular access to technology at home and those who did not. The conceptual understanding of how devices work can be mapped across to so many different applications, from the interactive whiteboard to scratch games. Seeing children with these abilities flourish in classrooms whilst those who did not became alienated, mistaking their lack of experience for a lack of innate talent. It is an uncomfortable thing to observe, and I can understand why Servan argues that ICT can actually widen educational handicaps. Pupils in early years are easily drawn to technology and desperate to explore this other world. However, it is in early years where provision is lacking most. During my block school experience, there were constant behaviour issues surrounding which of the 30 children could use the one of two rather old computers. This resulted in strict time restraints and the opportunity for meaningful experience being curtailed. However, doing away with ICT would clearly be cutting off our nose to spite our face, and so practical solutions must be found to bring those without regular access into the world of information technology. As teachers, we should continue to use technology in a considered and complementary way to our existing pedagogies, making sure we do not reduce those without regular access to ICT into what Charlson calls passive spectators. Just as pupils who are not exposed to literacy in the home can benefit from interventions, we must find creative ways to include those learners whose digital literacy is lacking. To be included is to have a voice, and to use that voice to impact the world around you. ICT can offer pupils that voice if the teacher in the classroom can provide the microphone to amplify it.
Created using Powtoon.